Hello everyone and welcome to my review for Kengan Omega Chapter 166. As always, if you haven't already, you should definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future Kengan Omega content. And you should also be sure to leave a like on the video. I'd like to try and hit about 100 likes on this week's review. Now this week's chapter is interesting because there were a few things that kind of irked me a little bit in the chapter, but overall, I thought it was really good. But when I think about the chapter more in, the grand scheme of things, I'm not sure I like the direction things are going in. Let's get a little more in detail, shall we? First things first, someone needs to give Sandrovich a dictionary or remove the word tragedy from his, because once again, he seems to really not know what it means. The last tragedy before this one was Eddie being killed, not Aereo. And there was no tragedy this chapter. No one died or anything. It doesn't even seem like Chiba is permanently crippled from his injury. I guess the tragedy could be Ryuki falling further into the abyss, but, I just kind of don't care. I don't know, I feel like a lot of other people don't as well, which you could argue it's well, that's not really Sandrovich's fault. If something's supposed to be tragic and the audience just isn't really reacting to it, it is kind of Sandrovich's fault because, well, he's the one setting expectations for things and then not even remotely meeting those expectations, not to mention the, precedent already existing for tragedies, and just a lot of the writing in general not really lending to people caring much about these things. So what happened? What was this thing that happened off-screen last chapter that we finally get to see this chapter? Well, obviously, Ryuki was fighting Chiba. Chiba actually did something pretty cool. He was copying Agito's Formless and Lolong's Silat. I don't know how good he would be at either of those, because Chiba may have, the skill to replicate the movements of these techniques and stuff, but he sure as shit does not have the physical stats to replicate their power. Otherwise, Ryuki would be getting, obliterated right now. And, of course, he also lacks things like pre-initiative and other types of foresight. So, he is using someone else's moves without any of the other stats that make them as strong as they are. But he ends up fusing Formless and Silat, and the panels for this are actually really cool. It's probably the part of the chapter that I liked the most. I was actually like, oh shit, Chiba, that's pretty nice. Then Ryuki hits Chiba with the good old classic Blink Rakshasa's Palm combo, because apparently in the week since his last fight, Kiryu has taught him the Koei style. Now, he hasn't mastered the Koei style. He explicitly is nowhere near as good at using it as Kiryu is. He's nowhere near Kiryu's level of mastery. But this still feels like a little bit of an issue. Because, what was it? It takes 8 years for the average fighter to master the Koei style, and Kiryu managed to do it in 1 year. There's a very long process of conditioning for learning to use Rakshasa's Palm. But apparently, Ryuki has been able to use it pretty well within just a week. He hasn't mastered it, but he's doing a pretty good job at using it after only a week. What the fuck? I guarantee you it took Kiryu probably at least a month or two to figure out how to use it. At least, at the bare minimum, probably. What the fuck is Ryuki on here? To be able to figure out how to use something that requires this kind of conditioning so quickly, it's just... Who is supposed to be the greatest martial arts prodigy of all time here? Is it Ryuki? Supposedly Koga, but Koga actually takes quite a while to learn how to do things. I understand that Ryuki was, trained by Gao Mukaku and stuff, but, just because you spent most of your life being trained by a really strong guy to use one specific martial art doesn't mean you'll be able to learn how to use another one in a fucking week. That is not how that works. So I don't know what Sandrovich was on here being like, oh yeah, Ryuki learned how to use it in a week. Now, if we were like, oh, Kiryu's been training Ryuki in how to use the Koei style for the last 2 years, ever since they started working with each other. You know, he's been teaching him a little bit with it. But then after losing his last match, Kiryu was like, all right, we'll up the ante a bit. I'm gonna give you some hardcore training for the next week to make sure you really know what you're doing. Be sure to pull it out in this next match. That, for me, would be far more believable. That would make way more sense. But instead we got this, which is just kind of lazy, in my opinion. Now, of course, Oma recognizes these techniques. He steps in to stop Ryuki from killing Chiba. And this is where we seem to get the confirmation of where Ryuki's character is going, and that he's pretty much become Kiryu's disciple to kill Kiryu's old god. So now he's the heir to Kiryu. He will be the new Kiryu. He kind of is. This kind of works with some of the old theories. People thought that he was Kiryu, or he was a clone of Kiryu, because their names are anagrams, and I'm pretty sure they're both the exact same height, have similar builds, things of that nature. Of course, we know that Ryuki's a clone of Oma. That was what most people had assumed. But there were some, like, crack theories about his relation to Setsuna back earlier on in the series. I don't know if I like this, because I think this implies that Koga is going to become Oma's heir, and I don't really want that. I want Koga to be kind of his own character, and that was kind of what I wanted with Ryuki as well. Seems like we're just latching them onto the old characters, and I'm not really sure I like where that's going, because also if Koga is going to be Oma's heir in order to oppose Ryuki as Kiryu's heir, that means he's probably gonna learn the Nico style, and I don't want that, because I want Koga to be his own distinct fighter that has his own thing going on that's not related to the Nico style. I don't know if we're going towards that. It kind of feels like we might be assuming that Koga and Ryuki are both supposed to be stand-ins for the continuing conflict between Oma and Kiryu. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. I don't know. I do not know. But yeah, that was pretty much all of my thoughts regarding the developments in this week's chapter. It was a pretty decent chapter overall, but once again, I'm not sure I really like these story directions we're going in here. Not the biggest fan in the world. But, fortunately, there are a whole bunch of other characters that are going to be involved in this tournament, and hopefully they'll be getting some spotlight in the near future. Hopefully we'll see some of their preliminary matches, and I'm really hoping that when we get to this actual tournament, we're not going to skip anyone's fights. We're going to get some good old-fashioned Kengan Ashura Annihilation Tournament style fights, and that should be pretty nice. So with that, that's all I've got for this week's review. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Kengan Omega chapter reactions and reviews every week that we get a new chapter. If you enjoy discussing Kengan Omega with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce in this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.